Looking dapper.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from pro and college basketball, UFC, MMA, NHL, and more. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. With live betting options, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. BetOnline is truly the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, to receive your rewards. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. It is the Arizona Cardinals centric specific show where, of course, we talk about the Arizona Cardinals here in the Phoenix metropolitan area. I am your dapper co-host, Javon J. Love Adams, and with me, as always, is the one and only Ed Easy Smith, who not only played professional baseball, but also played in the National Football League on that first Super Bowl bound team for the Atlanta Falcons. What is good, my brother?
I see you looking good and sharp today, brother.
Yeah, man, gotta do it every once in a while, man. dust off the business shirt and everything with time, man. How you living?
I'm doing good, man. Good to be back on with you for this edition of the Bleav in the Cardinals podcast.
Yes, indeed. We are back and better than ever. That's how we do it. I don't know if we shared it one of the last times we did. My dad passed away, and so there was all the different machinations and all that stuff. And then when Super Bowl was around, it was just crazy, man. So
yeah,
I know you was down on Radio Row and doing your thing, and you hooked up with some folks from Bleav. They were out here in the Valley of the Sun, so you was busy, man.
Yeah, it was good to meet some people. We do all these podcasts and everything, and we see everybody on, across Zoom and stuff like that. I actually got a chance to meet a lot of our, partners and Cam Rogers and everybody. It was kind of really cool to put some real actual handshakes to the faces instead of over Zoom. So, they do a lot in terms of our partnership. Great people. Just as good in person as they are over the Zoom, bro.
So there were some handshakes that were going on recently as the searches, everybody should know by now. We just want to give our spin on it. But as we know, the search for the replacement for Cliff Kingsbury has been found and he has been named. He is Jonathan Gannon. And I hadn't got your thoughts on it on our terrestrial show, Easy Sports Talk show. Wasn't able to give my thoughts there. I know you talked about it most recently this past weekend, but man, it took a long time. That could be good and bad. And my man is young, man. So he's young. I liked it when these young dudes get hired, and we're gonna get into his staff. But before we, in terms of how it's coming and shaping up, I want your thoughts on that. But first of all, what were your initial thoughts in terms of Jonathan Gannon? So it's interesting. I think I told you when they were going through that hiring process, or there were oftentimes what a radio station will do, especially if they're the flagship station, they'll reach out to maybe that particular market where that coach may be coming from to talk to the media there. And some of the results, some of the things initially were a little bit mixed in terms of what some of those folks, the media, said. And I sent you some of those things. It was from I want to say it was 98.7 that had a couple of members there, but mixed. But I listened to the press conference on the way out to California, and he said all the right things, and I got a good vibe from him. But I want your initial thoughts.
Yeah, it's interesting, how it always works out, Jay, with the person that you eventually hire, or I think we've joked about this before. Eventually, I even made a comment a few weeks back. The one you asked on that date, that prom date or whatever it is. That's always the one that you actually wanted, right?
Right.
That's the person that we wanted when it's all said and done. Sorry about that. I'm turning my phone off here. And in this instance, man, we went through a whole list of, potentials and interviews, and some people wanted the job, and apparently others didn't, because we had a couple that wouldn't even take the interview. And there was one coach, one Brian Flores, who, rather than come here and give it a shot to see if he could be our next head coach, he took a defensive coordinator job with the Vikings. And I started asking myself, wow, who wants this job? Or
Right.
And there's a lot of factors. When it's all said and done, the process is what it is. I'm not going to say we ended up with Coach Gannon, but he is the one who eventually accepted the job. The Cardinals seem very happy internally. Um, would I have wanted a little more head coaching experience, especially coming from one Cliff Kingsbury on the offensive side of the ball? Almost seems like deja vu. It seems like we're kind of going down that same path. There's not a lot of, I guess you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. In
Right.
one instance, I would like a head coach, a new head coach with a little more experience, right? But at the same time, we don't want the retreads. We went through a period some years ago was every head coach was a former head coach. We would go through, and after a while, I was like, well, hey, aren't there any new candidates out there? Now we're at this point in time where, if you're not a first time guy, you're not even, I mean, that's like the new norm now. Everybody's got to be the new hot coordinator. There's no even, or I guess there's no in between ground right now.
Yeah.
And with Gannon, I'm kind of like, I'm on the fence, bro. That's the only way I can say it in terms of I wish we'd had more, I guess, candidates with a little more experience, leaders of men, as I call them, rather than we're going down that, I guess, same path with the coordinator. But it is what it is. I will obviously talk about the coaching staff he's putting together. That's something that concerns me in terms of who he's bringing in. But as far as the hire itself, I mean, I just hope we're not in the same boat 3 years from now talking about how what we needed we didn't get. We know where with Kingsbury was. I was preaching all along. Just because he's a great coordinator or a good coordinator doesn't make him a good head coach. I just hope we're not saying the same thing somewhere in the near future here. But you got to give him a chance because he is the man who has the job now. So all I can say is, here we go. Let's see what he can do.
And is along those lines, it's kind of interesting. I remember before I went to earn my MBA, there was a time when I was applying for different jobs, and a lot of those MBA wanted plus X amount of unrealistic years of experience to go along with some of the places I was looking at. Or just that was in the newspaper. So this lets you know how long ago in the newspaper where that was. But I think there's something to be said about somebody who displays or shows whatever you feel are the right skills or characteristics, or they say the right words, they hit all the keywords, right? And there could be a good and bad with that as well. But to be able to not have to be a coach for X amount of years before, or a position or an offensive or defensive coordinator for X amount of years before maybe you get your opportunity. And we'll get into that with the staff, because it's a lot of, it's the difference between, I would say, Jonathan Good and his staff versus Kingsbury and his, was when Kingsbury came on, they said, don't worry about it. We'll hire all your folks.
Mm-hmm.
And then so it was just, he was just there and everything was done for him. But Jonathan Good, he's coming in and saying, these are the people that I want. And that's kind of where we're going to get into that a little bit. You mentioned the experience versus not having experience, but any coach that's good, very good, or even dare I say great, had to have that first opportunity to be able to see whether or not they could cut it. Some of those, like maybe a Belichick, flamed out in his first, wasn't successful in his first opportunity, but made the second one really count. And so there are examples of that along the way. But so having said that, let's look to see kind of let's go with the offensive coordinator. So Drew Petzing, he's never been a play caller before. He was a quarterback coach from the Cleveland Browns. What's interesting here is, from what Jonathan Good had said, what the head coach has said is that he wants, and we've been saying this, and I think this is music to our ears, we're going to see, but that what they want is to be able to have Kyler Murray under center, and not all the time, but enough so that defenses do not always know what's coming, because that's what the Cardinals were last season. They were very predictable because he had the game plan against the Cardinals when the Eagles played them last season. How you never called plays before? I mean, I'm just saying, quarterback coach, you can be around greatness. I can be around great MCs. Don't make me a great MC, right? I don't know, but your initial reaction to him coming on board.
Well, Drew Petzing, wow, 35 years old.
Yes, sir.
Never been a coordinator.
Yes, sir.
In fact, he wasn't even an offensive player in college. Let me give you this one, Jay. Attended Middlebury College, where he played defensive back for the Panthers from 2005 to 2006 before his career was cut short. Can you really say your career was cut short after 2 years at Middlebury College? I guess you can. He spent the next 2 years as a voluntary student assistant before graduating. Then he got into coaching, obviously at some higher levels there. Most recently, a quarterbacks coach for the Cleveland Browns. Before that, he was a tight ends coach. I guess eventually he he worked his way over to the offensive side of the ball. Man, being a quarterbacks and a tight ends coach is a whole lot different than all of a sudden now being the architect and director and manager of an offense at the highest of high levels, meaning in the NFL. And I'm not going to even sit here and pretend like that doesn't worry me a little bit.
Right.
We're wow. Let's be real about it. We're talking about a dude on, this is not pertaining to our show, but one Eric Bieniemy, who was, in a room with Andy Reid. They've been to 3 Super Bowls, won 2 over the last few years, and we're giving him a hard time because the criticism of him. Well, he's not even in there calling the plays, and he doesn't do this and doesn't do that. So he has to now go to the Commanders to be an OC to see if he can be a head coach. I know we're talking about apples and oranges here because Petzing is only moving up to that OC level, but man, it's just, for me, it's a far cry, like I said, from managing in one room, meaning as a quarterback's coach. And I know everybody sits with the offensive coordinator and does different things like that. Now, like I said, where do you, here's my question, in your first stint as an offensive coordinator, where are you getting your book from? Where's your playbook coming from? I mean, because you're literally starting it from scratch.
Yeah.
If now you can say, well, I'm gonna take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, I'm gonna do this, But when you leave organizations there, I can guarantee you, even as a player, I wasn't allowed to walk out of the room with my playbook. First thing I had to do when I was either released or at the end of the season was turn my playbook back in, right? Now, where is he getting his start from? What is he? Maybe he's going to spend the first part of his offseason putting it together. But if I was in a meet, like when he's doing his press conference, I would be like, okay, so coach, what's your philosophy, or what is your, what's your identity as an offensive player, play caller? He can't even answer that question right now because he has never done it before. So am I a little worried? And then obviously coming in here and taking over what Kingsbury left behind, also dealing with the personality of one Kyler Murray and some of the issues we've already dealt with him. You're not just coming into a clean room like, they get up from the blackjack table of the dealers when they just watch, clap their hands and show them. He's coming in, you're coming in with dirty hands already because this is not a clean situation here. So, I'm just curious where it all starts from. And the fact that he's never done it before, I'm not all that confident, to be honest with you, man.
Look, man, a lot of this stuff, it's a youth movement here. So it's going to be a great success and maybe show other organizations what can be done if you are bold enough to be able to let this happen. Because it's funny when you say 40 is young, but when you look at some of the older coaches, right? So 40, 35, one of the things that the head coach said was that they want to be adaptable. I think that's one of the things he mentioned in his press conference, that being adaptable, and that's a good thing, but that takes time to develop that. And so you just wonder, with the amount of experience that only he has, the head coach has been in football for over a decade in terms of various organizations. With the St. Louis Rams, he was with so various organizations. But the point is that a lot of this is, think of it, when you sit with your partner, right? And you say, man, if I ever get a chance, dog, I'm bringing you with me. Mm-hmm. And then he's saying, and then the difference is that most times when that happens, oh man, I can't bring you with me because you just don't got enough experience. But he's saying to his partners that he's come across, remember I told you, you ready? Let's do it. and that's what's happening with a lot of these hires because of the connections that he's had with them or the different stops or maybe when they've crossed paths. So let's get to the defensive coordinator. Now you were saying something about 35 for the offensive coordinator. And I'm the dude. I like it because I'm just saying the ageism, but that can work positively and negatively depending on where you're at or the situation. It's a risk. It's a risk, but Nick Rallis, I know I may be mispronouncing his name. I'll get it right because I assume he'll be here for at least a few years. He is 29. 29.
Now barely above the drinking age, legal drinking age, man.
But what's interesting, so you have to imagine that, or you would think that the head coach will focus on the defense, but he said that he wasn't sure yet. So it depends on who he gets in place and all those things. You want to make sure that your philosophies are in place. So it's going to be interesting to see how this comes about. But defensive coordinator, 29. What are your thoughts? So you walk into the room, you 32, you 31, you 30, you 29, and your coach and your defensive coordinator is trying to tell you what to do. I would imagine if he can command the room, that it wouldn't be a problem, or if he's able to diffuse or address an issue once the first issue that comes up, that will get him the respect. But I'm just curious because you had told me about one time where there was an organization that you were with. There was a new head coach, and he came in trying to establish himself right away, and it was very clear that he was not going to be the alpha male. But so how does that work, and what are your thoughts on this defensive coordinator?
This one confuses me a little bit, and it could be a good or a bad confusion for me. One is we all know that Gannon, he's a former defensive coordinator with the Eagles, just came over. So, and the fact that he hired a defensive coordinator, the first thing I was thinking was, wait a minute, I thought that was his job. Now, could be a good thing because maybe he wants to concentrate more on being head coach first, and then having a small hand in the defense, and that's why he went and got a defensive coordinator to let them do you do that job. I'll assist you if you need, but I want somebody to do that job so I can concentrate on all the other things.
Which is a good way to go about it.
That could be a good way. Now, the problem I have though is you go out and get a dude that's 29 years old, and I mean, you're thinking, look at this. I'm looking at it where just 3 years ago, Jay, his title was quality control. And there's a quality control coach. You know what quality control dudes do? What? They're the dudes that during practice, when we're running the scout team, they're the dude that's holding up the cards to show all the scout team what they're doing. And so, I mean, and I'm not taking anything away from quality control, but that's some of the things that they're doing. Now, do they have their hands in game planning and this, that? Most of the time, no. That's why, I mean, there are different titles, and eventually he moved up to, when he was with the Vikings, as early as just as frequent as 2020, defensive quality control and assistant linebackers coach. That means you were helping the linebacker coach do it, helping him do his job, was, like I said, you're probably one breaking down the film and stuff like that. But as far as having a hand in the daily with the players and game planning and stuff like that, no, you're assisting the actual linebackers coach. And then he was with the linebackers coach with the Eagles, but just 2 years later, now all of a sudden he's the coordinator of a defense. Once again, I'll give Gannon a little bit of credit because Gannon's probably going to have his hands deep into the mixing of this batter. But as far as if it's just a title, that's one thing. But if you're turning the keys to the vehicle over to this young man at 21, I got a lot of problems with that, man. I'm just not. I mean, and I'm all for the youth movement, and but golly, at some point we got to have something. And obviously he's still kind of constructing the coaching staff, and you sent me something even earlier today. He's still putting it together, but I need a little more experience in some of those rooms than than some of these guys at this age. He's going to be talking to some of his players are going to be just as old, if not older than him, with a whole lot more experience because they actually have played on the field. As far as his playing background,
You seem very concerned, man. So
I'm
it
really
don't
concerned.
stop. It don't stop. So I'm gonna go through a couple other names because these are a little bit more position coaches. But offensive line coach Clayton Adams, who's 40. All right. So let's say special teams coordinator Jeff Rogers, 44. Tight ends coach Ben Steele, who's 44. And and then linebackers coach Sam Sifkis. He is obviously he's probably older than that since since they didn't list the age there. We got defensive assistant Patrick Toney. Yeah, it's gonna cornerbacks coach Ryan Smith, offensive assistant Drew Terrell, who's 31 years old. So I'm just it's a lot of youth. It's go. I'm curious. I hope that this succeeds because I think that would be cool. But it's interesting how, and we mentioned that's one of the things that I guess we've been focusing on here, Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals here, Ed Smith and Javon Adams, is that some of these folks hopped the line a little bit. They
Oh
hopped the
boy.
line a little bit there, man.
I mean, there's taking the elevator instead of the stairs day, and then there's taking the express elevator.
Right.
You go to a building sometime, and certain elevators they don't hit the middle floors; they literally just go up to the top. And they're not stopping at floor 6, 7 through 10 or 12. They're going straight to the top with no stops.
Right.
And it almost feels like some of these guys have kind of gotten that elevator, that express elevator ride, and it's like, whoa, it's just so fast.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, like I'm not knocking anybody's hustle. I'm
Right.
but at the same time, I'm wondering, man. I'm just like, is this going to come back to bite the Cardinals in terms of what we're we're going to be. You got to remember, these guys are going to be matched up against others that have been doing this for quite a long time,
There's going
and
to be a learning
we
curve. You have to
are.
and this maybe it's a good thing in some weird way that Kyler is injured. And by the way, he is working out here locally. There was we saw him in the video, that introductory video with head coach Good, and then also I heard on the radio today where the owner of the team also mentioned that Kyler's been working out here locally, so that's a positive thing. But it might be a good thing that he is injured or might be missing the first few games, because that allows the head coach and his young staff, young inexperienced staff, and it's just true, they're going to be gaining experience to be able to work out some of the kinks, and you just hope that big mistakes aren't made along the way as they're trying to get there to find their sea legs.
That's going to be interesting. That's a great point too, Brother Jay, because you're looking at 2023 being a season, like obviously they're coming in, taking over. They want to start developing their culture and different things like that. You're going to be doing it with not necessarily the lead actor of
Mm-hmm.
the
You got the
play.
understudy in the
You got
play
the
doing
Yeah,
exactly. Yes,
you got
sir.
the understudy, and it's going to be interesting because you're going to want to start doing a lot of things, implementing different things. You mentioned having a quarterback under center more, and I question, does he fight that a little bit, because that's not where he's most comfortable. And you and I have talked about it before in the past. I think I understand why he's not so comfortable under center, is because of his height. When you're under center, there's a lot of play action and stuff like that. You're turning your back to the formation to carry out fakes and stuff like that. And then you have to turn and re-find everything. And when you're dealing with somebody who's not as tall as some of the average quarterbacks, it makes that part of the game is a little tougher for him. And maybe that's something that he, informed Kingsbury and them, hey, I'm more comfortable out of this. And obviously we've seen where that's gotten everybody as far as the offense's point. And Gannon comes in and he says, hey, we're going to tailor it to do this, and we're going to expect our quarterback to be under center more so you're going to be starting by implementing everything from the start without him even being there on the field, able to even practice or do some of the things that you're trying to implement. And let's say he's back mid to late season, and you've already started establishing certain things, and then he comes back, and it's like, well, that's not how I like to do it, or I'm not comfortable doing that. It's going to be some really interesting discussions that are going to be had both with him in and out of the lineup. That's going to be it's going to be another one of those things, man, we're going to have to keep our eye on.
It is. I mean, and again, we are back, so we'll be doing this thing twice a week. So make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend. But I wanted to ask you this before. This might be a little bit of a shorter version of Bleav this week, but I want to ask you this: the press conference. Some of those, I think there were 4 different things that he mentioned that are his tenets or his values for his team. One was adaptable. I like that. The other was
Mm-hmm.
violent, and I think another one was smart, and I forget the other one, but violent and adaptable. Did that at least make you say, okay, I like that approach? Again, it's one thing to be able to say all the right things in the once you got the job and then you're meeting with the press and you have your I'm sure that you can imagine some or remember some either managers or head coaches that had certain phrases or their
Yeah.
mantra, whatever that was. But did at least that, because I don't recall Kingsbury having that type of maybe at least a clear philosophy or values that he was hanging things on in that way, but I could be wrong.
Well, with Gannon, and I know it's, and I don't want to play on too much on words here, but he one of his statements in his conference, he said, "I don't believe in a scheme. I
Right.
believe in putting players we have in positions to be successful." So
Yes.
he said, "We will look different week to week."
I like
Now,
that, but
I like it, and
there's probably good and bad to it, but go ahead.
I like it, and I don't like it. Here's the thing: I don't necessarily think you need to have a scheme that is something that is like your overall kind of theme. But I do think, yeah, I would have been more. I'd been more impressive if you used the word. We're going to have an identity,
Okay.
meaning an identity meaning we're going to be a smash mouth football team, or we're going to be a hard hitting football team. We're going to be this. We're going to be that. Whereas like scheme, yeah, each week you try to come out and do things a little different because you don't want to be so predictable. But as far as the overall look of the team, I don't think. Here's the thing, and maybe I'm just playing with words a little bit, but I, as far as a scheme, yeah, every week you're going to have to change it up, but you're still going to look the same for the most part. It's your identity that you don't want to change. You want, like I said, if you got a bunch of nasty dudes out there, and because we can tell, we've talked. Remember when we had Wilkes here? We used to talk about those dudes don't even look like they want to hit out there. They look like
Right.
they were just and but that was their identity. To us,
Mm,
they was like, those dudes look soft out there. They don't, they people just running through them like wet toilet paper.
yeah.
Whereas we've seen teams, and I played against teams, bro, where it's like when you saw them on the schedule, you're like, man, it's gonna be one of those games. You better buckle it up. You better strap it up extra because
Yeah.
this one's gonna be nasty. It's gonna be hard hitting. So that's the thing. I want that as an identity. As far as I don't believe in a scheme. You better have a scheme. You better have some type of plan, because like I said, if your scheme is like every week we're just gonna look different, and now you're starting off, you know, that's that's just a bad way to start out. So like I said, man, and here's the thing, Jay, we're playing with words right now, and
Right.
what we have to do is we have to make it all, because you got to remember it's been 4 years since a coaching change, right? So
Yes.
we have to. This is that time of the year where, okay, we're going to hear all the coach talk, we're going to hear all the player talk, we're going to see dudes that are in meetings now and stuff like that, quote unquote, doing their rehab and stuff like that. When the cameras here, it's easy to do that. It's predictable. They knew they were
Right.
hiring a coach. Hey, Kyler, hey, could you come in and make sure you're here this week? Because it would be really important. It'd be a great look for us if you're sitting in the very first row during the press conference. Okay. Well, let's see what happens once we get past the honeymoon stage here, and it becomes the doldrums of April and May and June, and cameras aren't there because they're focusing more on the draft picks and guys that are in first mini camps and stuff like that. Where's Kyler then? Oh, Kyler, he back in Texas right now. We hope to see him later on this year. So all this stuff that gives us a whole lot to talk about now, and hopefully the positives will remain. But this is that time of the year, Jay, when we're gonna hear all the right things said. We're gonna see some of the right things said. All you can do is cross your fingers, because once August, then September, and beyond into January, that's when it all really counts. So we can talk about his words, like meaning Gannon's words and this and another. It's all going to come to play once we start to see some of those home field practices. We start hearing more about, the philosophy and the players, their feedback and stuff like that. Like I said, it's all good right now. I want to see what happens when the rubber meets the road later on this year.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. So, youth movement in a positive way. We're going to see.
Yeah.
It's a hater. That's how it
Well, you
goes.
know, and think of this too, Jay, not to interrupt you, but there are 31 free agents on
Yeah.
his team. So he's going to have the opportunity. This is raw dough right here. You know,
Yeah.
he's going to have an opportunity to. They're going to go after the dudes they want to keep here, get rid of the ones that don't want to be here, or bring in better players to fit his schemes and philosophy and mentality and stuff like that. So he's getting a fresh start. And, you know, at the same time, that's a double-edged sword because you are starting with a deficiency in talent on the roster. You got to go out there and sign it, keep the good stuff here, get rid of the bad, et cetera, et cetera. So between him, which meaning Gannon, Austin Ford being the GM, they're going to have to write a lot of checks, do the scouting department. Everybody's going to be tested this offseason, leading into the draft and beyond. So this Cardinals team, organization, and as a whole is going to look entirely different than what it did these past couple of years, but that could be a good thing.
Indeed. So again, this has been Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. He is Ed Smith. I'm Javon Adams. As we always like to say, make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend about what we have going on. We back. And sometimes I'm looking dapper as we do this. And as always, we are presented by Bet Online. And as we always like to say around this time, you can.
Good to be back on with you, Brother Jay.
Yes, sir.